Okay. Technical difficulties is crazy on this thing. Nuts. Over here. If any of you are online, let me know. I want to go through. Malik Low. Peace, God. So many technical difficulties I've been having. So, now that we're on the air, should be better. All right, Gerald Boylan. Peace. All right, as we always start though, let me know any questions that you have or about anything. It gives me a time to queue up and see what I have, see what I don't have. Okay. Yeah, if there's any questions, let me know. What I'm literally doing now is just collecting some materials, letting people come into the classroom, see who's here, who wants to learn and stuff. And since I'm doing it online here, last week I didn't get to, so I could give you some more things. Well, first of all, it's a good question, Malik. In the present time, who would be the minister? You know what I mean? I'm not one to see that as a definitive metaphor. And that's what's key in the way that you ask the question, because sure, yeah. You know what? Let me open up an old plus lesson I have. See if I can find it. It's not really a plus lesson, but it'll be read as one in the future. I literally have a So those are good questions, though. Give me a minute so I could find what I'm looking for here. I wrote this, man, years ago. Yeah. All right, right now I'm just updating my notes and stuff because this thing is just shit. It'll look all sloppy. It takes me 2 hours to get to a law school. So today I'm doing the class online literally because I just wasn't going to be able to finish the work that I had to do. I've been wonderfully overloaded with a lot of work, so that's a good thing, but I would have left the work and gone to the school, but because we have the online afforded, and because, man, unlike any other year, the school has been really, really empty. You know what I mean? So I took this privilege, literally a privilege, because it's not something I would do, to take this one-shot deal here until I get my schedule realigned back again. But let me make those quick notes here because I'm trying to find something. Okay. All right, I found it. So All right. Oh, all right. It would have taken me a couple of extra minutes to align all my notes for the class, but I wanted to go online immediately so that way you could realize you're there. I noticed that a lot of you don't seem to tune in or something like that. If I don't log on immediately, when I'm in the classroom, if I don't log in immediately, it doesn't really mean that I'm not there. It means that I'm not at the school. I mean, excuse me. It means that I am at the school usually. What it means is that I am not. It doesn't mean I'm not ready to start. It means I don't want to start with everyone. It means I'm building with a student that's in the classroom, and I'm building with them on a more personal level. So sometimes when students come a little bit early, I try to afford them that, and this is the way that I'm trying to integrate both the online and the classroom, right? But let me copy and paste that question. Very good question. That Malik Low. All right. I think the most important thing though is that you're seeing it as a metaphor. Okay. So the way to apply the wisdom build degree, right? Which they say that there are other rules and regulations not mentioned in this lesson, but that means that what you just excuse me, what you just read were rules and regulations. So all right. So if I don't think that you can really do them by themselves. You kind of have to do them completely. Certainly, doctors and ministers to me kind of go together because the doctor, the doctor's law was to examine, like to do the knowledge, right? Um, and of course, the language is all those desiring to marry must first be qualified by the doctor. In return, he qualified to disqualify them to the minister, right? The minister who would only marry those who are unalike, right? So now, this is all about separation. So I don't want to answer the question just yet because I haven't really thought about this honestly. So I'm glad that I got thrown this because what I used to think, I haven't thought about this degree in that level in a long time. So that means that to realign it, I would have to think about the institutions now. But here's what this is about. This is about the successful operation of separation. Separation to do two things: to diffuse the power being coordinated to something grand, and I'm talking from our perspective, grand, and to also coordinate the power to what is useful for them, but not overpowering where they can't do what they want. Here's what that means. It means that blood sucking is a real science. It means that you have to actually be able to take from the population, right? Just think about this. You have to be able to take from the population, but not enough where they can't live. Also, not enough where they could realize their own power, or not so much realize their own power, but realize that there is a possibility to unite with that power. I think in today's world, that latter part is key. We don't really notice how we could actually unite, right? How is it possible to unite? So we just think we're just changing. So here's the thing that's interesting, though, right? It makes me think politically because we're in political times. Though we're going to see the circus show is about to start in a little bit tonight with the last circus event. So of these old man debates of who will rule, right? But I think this, right? I think that whoever the minister is, right, in this, the minister is the one who actually marries those. So they're the ones that make it official. You know what I mean? So if we look at the doctors examining though, then it's more than one thing. I don't think it's just one thing. It's those who examine. And here's the interesting thing, right? What we have in the last 4 years politically or on a global stage, since I'm thinking globally now, not globally, but I'm thinking countrywide, of individuals in power, especially with Trump, right? Because Trump's presidency is very unique. I think when people say, well, voting for one devil or the other, this is one where you see drastic differences, because people are making the very good point of Biden going into continuing a status quo oppression, which is actual fact. There's no way around it. That's his MO. That's what he knows how to do. That's what he's going to do. And then favoring, by doing nothing and letting it happen, Trump to continue, is something different. It isn't the same. And it isn't the bonus plus that you think it is of having a devil out in front, because a lot of people are saying that, though, as if they would be frontline center in the revolution, and they wouldn't. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't even know how to defend their families and stuff like that, or provide and stuff when it gets real like that. You know what I mean? If we take 2020 as a stepping stone, and you have, then you were more in line to, you're more in line to say that you will. But here's the thing, right? Trump's style of presidency favors chaos, and it also includes bumbling. So it should show you the disrespect that we should have for leadership and the oppressors, because they are not the grand thinkers that you think they are. You know what I'm saying? And then there's also because of the chaos, you get things like this pandemic that look like a pandemic after the fact, because disaster capitalism has been in swing and has been in full mode for years, since, officially, not since, starting, but officially as a blatant thing since the levees broke in out in New Orleans. Disaster capitalism, we see it in Puerto Rico with the hurricanes. Anywhere you go, you've seen the effects and the power of disaster capitalism. But you see, in a chaotic world, right, the doctors are the ones who examine. Normally, this would be something very distinct, like the cop. The cop examines you, right? But at the same time, though, we see the cop acting like the nurse, though, and destroying the black baby. You know what I'm saying? So we see like a merging of the roles as well. So when we see like the doctor's laws to examine and the nurse is actually to marry them, right? Who are the people, the ministers in this case, who are those people that are actually fulfilling the what is official? I think for a lot of people, sometimes the process itself is what they negate. So for some people, though, if you're going into it blindly, things like voting itself can be the minister. In other words, institutional actions can be the ministers themselves, because for most people, voting isn't an activity among many to engage in the society, right? Because we engage in the society, we should be able to vote this, do those things, build with the youth, all of these things interplay. For if you're a real builder, whether you vote or not shouldn't be a big deal. I notice for people that aren't really building, not voting becomes their biggest weapon. You know what I mean? And for people that don't know how to build, or the average 85, voting becomes a big deal. But what I mean by that is that now when we look at voting being like a minister, we're thinking of people, but it's really institution. Voting is an institution. You know what I mean? Because it's seen as the peak action of the land. You know what I mean? The peak activist action of the land, So what happens when you vote? You basically take what you were saying and you are verifying the unalike. You know what I'm saying? That is your verification of the unalike. And not just by the voting, but mostly because the voting is done by itself. Okay, the voting is done by itself. It's done as an end-all action, and that's really the problem. So I'm not gonna. I don't know. If I look around everywhere, I could see ministers everywhere, things that verify things. You know what I'm saying? You're looking for things that verify, things that make things official, you know, things that make era official, you know, the historians, all of these things. So, you know, all that is important, right? I hope that answers the question. You know what I mean? Um,
Tonight, Biden and Trump will meet again on the debate stage with new rules designed to keep order. But no mute button is likely to stop these kinds of personal attacks.
all right, let's see. A lot of comments here while I was typing and talking. Um, Saladin, yeah, thanks for the knowledge on the pen and martial arts. I'd never known that. Yeah, you know, Saladin, you know, give me some time to go through some books though, but there's lots of documentation of the actual the way people wrote, the type of script that they had, being crucial, you know, to the way that people's martial arts is decided. You know what I mean? As a visual, if you just want to see like the importance of it, though, you watch Jet Li's Hero, right? Jet Li's Hero shows all that. You know what I mean? In that respect. Right? There was another question that Malik asked. So I want to get into that. Let me look through these comments and then go back. Build on the Four Devils. That's what I saw. Gerald's question was the one I saw. All right, Gerald, I'm going to build on that. Give you a different perspective on that. Malik said, I recall building with a brother, and he said, give him a practical view. I said, look at the science on the ambulance. Okay. All right. Peace 793rd. Peace elevation. Elevation, says it's amazing how we're leveraging technology so much now as a collective. But when I was pushing forward several years ago, people were very reluctant, unwilling. I'm glad he's in office. Trump is forcing black people to wake up and to realize we don't have any friends. Trump has not targeted black people with legislative policy, nor has he helped black people. Biden has locked up thousands of black men. He's going to give $300 million law enforcement and more. When black people realize we don't have any friends, would be better. Yeah, elevation. I disagree with that. Yeah, I think you're not looking at the presidency in a full light. You know what I mean? You're looking at distinct legislation. Trump doesn't really have to do anything though, because they did that already. He doesn't have to do that more. You know what I'm saying? When you look, here's the problem that I have in elevation. I don't know if I've built on this for the last couple of weeks and stuff. What Trump is doing is far. I think this. I think that we fall into a hole when we appreciate the style of oppression. Okay, because we could fall victim to that. And that other people will awaken there. That's always a recipe for disaster, because the way things are awakened are usually through violence, massive violence, and that would be the only way. You know what I'm saying? So if he stays in office, though, what you're asking for, what you think is good, is just that. But be careful of the leader. See, you're studying the ways to revolution and thinking that chaos on the top is going to lead to revolution. But if you study the last couple of revolutions against capitalist societies in the modern era, they're not built by the chaos of individual leaders, though. The systems were pretty much in place and very well structured. Massive violence and things like that. People were overboard, but they really they really happen when the people become focused. And it's not the average person in the population. You know, when we look at, for example, Fidel's Cuba, Look at the leaders of that revolution. They are not the average people of that population. Fidel Castro is absolutely not the average person of the population. It's synonymous with Che Guevara, and Che Guevara isn't even of that population. You know what I mean? So when you think that a chaotic ruler, and that was what I would call Trump, a chaotic ruler who changes the way that they govern, it's really towards something new, and it leads more to fascism. So you have to start studying your fascism before you say that he hasn't targeted black people, because the president prior was Obama. That was a quieting of the black people, to quiet people down. Okay, that's the only reason he was put in there, because some type of revolt was necessary, right? The truth is that Trump is put there, not then Trump being put there is would be put illogically if he was there to spark some kind of revolution or awareness among the people. The truth is that the real problem was white folk themselves. Okay, they their populations are dwindling. They don't have the numbers, and they are dying slowly. Um, for the last couple of years, the census has shown that whites are dying faster than they are being born, and all the original people populations though are um, mating at faster rates though. So our rates are now being shown, uh, and proven on that respect. You know what I mean? When you say Trump has targeted black people, has not targeted people with legislative policy, his legislative policy has nothing to do with it though. It's already there. It's the emboldening of the average citizen. So you forget though that a president's job though isn't to legislate at all anyway. The things that you saw, the Clinton and all these things, they already set that foundation. There's no need to fix that. They already did that devilishment. So you're giving him credit for things that he didn't have to do anyway. So that doesn't really make a good measure, you know. And you're also giving Biden credit for things that he already did. So it doesn't matter. This whole thing about me saying no to Trump, it isn't validating Biden. I'm saying that one is absolutely more dangerous to the average person than the other, right? And for me, because the father dealt with the peacefulness of the society, the working with the society. I don't think that he would want people to just parade or stand by, right, and be okay with a type of leader, right, that leads toward fascism, right? Because remember, fascism is when there is chaos, and martial law is more likely. They also are present when the conditions of the society are also led chaotically, right? Um, and he certainly takes that to the next level. So, right, and if you look at the real players, right, the Mitch McConnells and people like that, they have been more effective in their devilishment. So before you say that he hasn't really targeted black people, you're looking at Trump and you're looking at the wrong person. You have to look at the puppeteers. You have to look at the Mitch McConnells and others that have actually emboldened and see the work that they have put in. Now, when you look at people like Mitch McConnell, whose career has been filled with devilishment and has even become even more prominent, prominent in name, prominent in stature, prominent in coverage, because they know he is enacting things that has taken it to the next level of devilishment. You know what I mean? And there's a good book. It's easier to look on my phone because Google Play Books doesn't really let you search for things when you have it open in the laptop. Their search engine doesn't work that way. It works when you're using it from the phone. Yeah, there's a recent book, Jason Stanley's How Fascism Works, right? It really goes through this well, what I'm trying to say here. You know what I mean? And anybody that wants this book, I can give it to them, obviously. Most of the books that I have, I can share digitally. But that's why elevation. I don't think that it's a either and or. Um, I think that we kind of belittle. Now, here's the thing, right? I'll tell you this, right? Really think about this, right? In Trump's presidency, has the has the targeted consciousness been on point, or have we just seen more uh, uh, um, you know, I'm looking for the word. To me, I feel we've seen more of of the birth of a new bourgeoisie, a more bougie, um, revolution class. You know what I'm saying? One that has more articulation, one that is millennialized, um, one that you know has a lot of fancy words for stuff that often doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It isn't really about the common man. You know what I mean? Um, but also this though, this is what I was gonna say. The last thing before I scroll more comments and stuff, see what people are asking or responding to what I said about the uh, the wisdom build degree and the ministers. Here's what I'm saying about Trump. I think of things in a very Chinese way, ancient Chinese way of philosophy, in that the leader is one who gives a guide for the people to follow. You know what I'm saying? And they follow that lead. The truth is that because of those numbers I was saying, lowering the birth numbers and whites' birth numbers, Trump is the perfect president to actually galvanize. And see, you're looking at him not doing anything to blacks because you're not looking at his actual galvanizing ability. Why do you think that when things go awry, he goes and does things that are technically not supposed to be done, in either rule, in either stated rule or unwritten rule, and goes out and rallies. You know what I mean? Like, for example, rallying at the White House for the presidency that's coming up, which is totally against the rule of law that is established, because he's setting up the alpha white male to prevail again. This is the only way that he can get these numbers up. So what happens is that it also emboldens the racist population. You know what I mean? I think we also leave ourselves to ignore the fact that the the daring of white folk to be those white folk that were naturally racist, to be their racist selves, absolutely has reached another level. So as far as the societal impact, he doesn't have to enact a law. He doesn't have to tell people for more cops or anything like that. He just has to say deploy. Do we forget that during all of these riots during the pandemic, that he didn't enact any laws either, but he actually was forcing things to be deployed? So I think elevation, you're missing certain aspects of that. You know what I mean? Also, don't assume that the people, our people, in general, people, revolution can be forced by the oppression that they face. Look at the histories that our people have. Look at Latin American history. Look at African history. Oppression can increase by way more than it is here in this first so-called first world country, and become way more devastating before people even think about collecting themselves to uh, not just violently protest, which is rebellion, and that's the most that we saw, right? But um, actually organize in revolution. And the next thing you said, when the Puerto Rican governor is supporting Trump, interesting elevation, but absolutely 0% not surprising. Puerto Rico is a colony. Like, what would they always pick who's ever is in power, and it always has been like that. Let's not forget. A lot of people don't know that Puerto Rico is not only the most strategic as far as its geography, the most strategic island in the Caribbean, that the U.S. or any, European country owns, it also is the major home, really the major home of the biopharmaceutical industry. So that said shows you, that's a lot of devilishment there, right? I just saw the God Shot King, Allah, peace to the God. He shared some information how OxyContin was actually tested on women, Puerto Rican women in Puerto Rico in the 90s, and that's in line with what has always been done, how we've always been guinea pigs, and how this biopharmaceutical industry took off in Puerto Rico. We could always look back to the 50s with the testing of birth control pills, which were tested on Puerto Rican mothers, making nearly an entire generation of Puerto Rican mothers unable to birth children without them knowing or consenting, right? Genus Germ, peace. I'm glad you're touching on politics. I wanted to ask you about politics and its intersection with American culture. What specifically, Genus? Because as far as American culture, I don't want to fish out something I see and not tackle something particularly. You know what I'm saying? Elevation, not voting is a big deal for foundational Black Americans because we need to punish these politicians and to change in that landscape. We're not voting. But Blacks don't vote anyway, so they're not really punishing. You're not getting the point of the vote. Like, it doesn't work that way. Only Ice Cube makes you think that Blacks are united if I say that I have a contract with Black America, right? Which is another fraudulent thing, right? You voting in blocks only works if you lobby the power of your vote before you vote. Nothing has been lobbied, and that's why local voting is more powerful, because let's say, for example, when Jews have power, let's just look at Jewish communities, Hasidic communities, right? Hasidics have a culture, that they have a distinct culture, right? Remember, we're trying to teach culture to people, that they have a distinct culture. Our people don't, and they're living under the creations of endless cultural lifestyles via their creations of art, arts and culture. That's different. You know what I mean? We keep making music, we keep making genres and stuff, but we don't really have a people culture, right? That is consistent. So here's what I mean by that, like the flaw in what you just said, Elevation, right? And again, this is what I mean. What you said makes sense, but it isn't going to be done now at all. Because if every Black doesn't vote, okay, if every Black doesn't vote in this election, what does that mean? Just say, like, every single Black, every single African American, just make a distinction. Every single African American does not vote at all in this election. What actually happens? Well, the people that they were most likely to vote for may possibly lose, and then we get Trump, right? Now, when that happens, though, does that mean that, what does that mean? Will that magically force the losing party that expected those votes, Democratic Party most likely, right, to go in a different direction and really fish hard to see what African Americans really want? That's a problem in itself already, because we already have African Americans pulling the trigger, assuming that they have all Blacks united under a certain vote, under a certain concept of vote. And that would be Ice Cube's contract of Black America that was taken to nobody, right? Written by intellectuals that we might agree with, like Claude Anderson and things like that. But let's say, we'll talk about the people, not what we think is right in this case, right? What the people want. Claude Anderson's been pitching his economic philosophies for almost 30, 40 years, and it hasn't catched on to be a popular, massive popular agenda. So now, when these look to what's going on, are they going to spend the time and the money? Now they have to actually find out what it is that Blacks want. or they can realign though and ignore them continuously. See that you're thinking that they have no options. Once we ignore them, they can't ignore us though. Isn't a proven equation. You know what I mean? It just means that they could pitch particular targets, see what they want, and then adjust accordingly, right? But right now, to be honestly, elevation, when you say you don't vote, it's you that's not voting. You know what I mean? It's you that not voting. You know what I mean? And you know what? And I'll say this though, because you use the word foundational Black Americans, right? Foundational Black Americans though is also an incorrect term, because you're trying to target African Americans. It's just say African Americans, because even the FBA, their website, Tariq Nasheed and all of them, they say people that are foundational as people that were brought here, right? Let's see, the FBA. I had this website somewhere, FBA. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, I want to read their three. They had their three things that say what is a foundation, because, be wary of terms that you use, though. You know what I mean? All right, let's see. In their flag, they have 3 stars. So it says it represents the 3 groups who make up the ethnic group that would become foundational Black Americans. 1, the Black Aboriginal people of North America. Okay? He made a mistake already, though. He said North America. So that means my Canadian brothers got options in this, right? I'm assuming that we're eliminating the Caribbean, because now the Caribbean is in the middle, though. Is it North America? Let's assume that it's eliminated. The Black, he really just should have wrote United States of America, right? The Black explorers and traders who had contact with the Americas before Columbus. I mean, that's generic, though. I mean, there's nobody that can trace that ancestry to individuals, though, so I don't see the reason for writing that. And then 3, the captives brought to the Western Hemisphere from Africa. So then that includes what? You know what I'm saying? So then by default, though, then that would include me as well, because now I've been an American citizen for how long, right? They're making up new terms, though, for the same old shit. And it's really for what? It's for the purpose I'm saying. Because they want to have a block, an identifiable block. But the problem is that everybody wants to identify the block of African Americans again and again. It's already identified. The problem is it isn't united. So even him with the FBA, he has no one under him to say, this is what we're going to lobby for. This is what we're going to ask. And that can only be really done, not on a broad level. It cannot be done on a broad level. All 50 states. It has to be done on a local level. Look at, African Americans always, they often complain in bulk about communities, right? This community has shit, Chinese have shit, this have shit. But they might be having a broad collective repetitive mode, right? Like a lot of the Chinese, they set up that restaurant for food that they don't eat, that y'all eat, and they continue to do this, and they branch off of communities. But they're not all getting together and saying, yo, this is a plot. Like this, you know what I mean? Right? Maybe the Hasidics are, right? But in reality, the way each community strikes, though, is as a collective, tight individual community that then lobbies to individuals, right? What African American community, though, is lobbying with collective financial responsibility that they've allotted to this lobbying, and with the great threat of the lobbying not working. Almost no community, almost none. You know what I mean? Because in general, it's still, once you get money, it's flight. It's flight out of the so-called ghetto, wherever you're from, right? It's a flight away from the Black community. Even if you didn't even move that far, like just flight away, as in your own little segregate. I made it. I'm here. You know what I mean? And let these niggas touch my shit. You know what I mean? And this is emblematic because people assume also too that brown communities have this massive collective, and I don't know where it is. I don't know the collective of, you know, Puerto Ricans in the Bronx uniting for particular things that are lobbied, you know what I mean? Because even if they could, they don't have the collective financial power too. So it's a lot of other things. So I don't think that at this point right now, like saying, oh, we're not going to vote, that's a play. No, it's just your own personal decision. No, it's just right now. It doesn't really have much of a power, you know. Right? It's really not popping too much. A lot of great comments in here. I got to get through them. Let's read some of these before I babble on about this Babylon. It took me all the way to the bottom, you know, and it's like evil chat room. I see some builds. Okay, this is where I was at. All right, elevation. All right, all right. All right. Okay, universal. All right, VII, right? I don't know how to say that. Doing a knowledge, right? Malik, I see a student. So it's a system in totality. Malik, I'm assuming that you're saying it's a system in totality regarding like what I was saying was the ministers. What I'm saying is that you don't have to see it as an individual role, like cop, lawyer, things like that. But anytime that you identify, and different societal roles will have both of those things in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right. Remember it says that the nurse's duty was to destroy, right? The black baby, right? But the nurse is also destroying mentally, not just physically, because the nurse is also what? Telling them about the angel baby, right? So some people aren't destroying physically, right? But they're destroying mentally, though. So some people have part of the nurse role. So you got to look at institutions, the roles, and sometimes they're not together all the time. You know, it's intriguing. All right, peace to everybody. Wow, this is great. Now I realize that when I get on time, though, everybody's on time. You know what I mean? When I get on late, technical difficulties, my camera wasn't being recognized, and my old way of figuring it out wasn't working. And now last week I did something new and got on, as y'all saw, but I did it in such haste that I didn't realize what I did. So I learned what I did. So now it's up here. Elevation, are there any gods of business here? If so, let's link. My company is 360 Magnetic Solutions. Excellent, though. Elevation, use this place as a network. We have to use each other, everyone's classrooms as a network. Any civilization class you're around, any cipher you with the gods and the earths. All right. All right. Elevation. Are you? I'm assuming that you're talking to me. You have a different culture than I do based on your bloodline. What you need is not what I need. I'm a foundational Black American. You're Puerto Rican. We don't deserve the same things, nor are striving for the same things. Yeah. Let me say something, Elevation, though. That really sounds crazy to me right there, what you just said. And it's bordering on bullshit because you're really feeding into a lot of that a lot of that ADOS bullshit. First of all, right? All of us, though, were brought here. All of us are a combination of either indigenous and or Africans that was brought here from Africa, right? But all of us are originally indigenous, though. So all of us are originally from Africa, right? And we have that originality. The truth is that shit only makes sense what you just said. We don't deserve the same things when you're talking the reparation shit. You know what I mean? But if African Americans are oppressed right now, what do you think Puerto Ricans are when we're still a colony over here? And nearly every single, and this is one example, nearly every single biopharmaceutical has been made by raping the island. So we start battling oppression, though, no one in history is going to match the unique oppression of the African American. But as far as like the same things, we are striving for the same thing. We don't deserve the same things, nor striving for the same things. What in the lesson are you striving for? Because you're not a foundational Black American, and I'm not a Puerto Rican. I'm the true and living God, Sunez Allah. You're coming in the name of elevation, Allah. So what are you? So that is an immediate delineation of communities that we come out of. But if you was to tell me that I'm Puerto Rican, I come out of a Puerto Rican community and have only lived with either all different types of Latinos and foundational Black Americans. And the foundational shit, that shit is crazy, because the society that you were born into, unless you're 100+ years old, part of that foundation is the shit that was raped from Puerto Rico. And that's an actual fact. That's something that you'll have to look up. So a lot of the shit that people are eating all over this whole country is based off what Puerto Rico has been raped of. And then when you say the same things or different things that we're striving for, give a clue. Like, what are those different things? Because the only shit that you're gonna say is reparations and bigger prices and stuff, right? Because if a Puerto Rican says, "Oh, I just want freedom for my island," no, you think that doesn't come with some type of reparations? Yakub couldn't even go take his followers without getting something from the society, right? He took his 59,999 followers to the island of Patmos. But they gave him something so he could have a grace period, right? So you're not looking at things the same. So even when we look at politics, we got to look at politics as the way our people that we're coming from might look at it. But man, we got to look at it beyond as the true and living God. Like, the truth is, African Americans aren't asking for shit but reparations. They have nothing different that they're asking for but that. Unless you're going to tell me that the contract with Black America, which is actually funded by racist white folk, go look, because y'all looked at Cube and y'all looked at the scholars you said did it, but you didn't even look at the Cube firm and see the racist foundation of his own firm, and that he's in bed with all that, and that it was okay that he didn't take it to anybody that was Black American, not one Black American community. And he can't even in that contract, Black America, list a massive amount of communities that it was given to. Man, they don't even put blockbuster movies out with letting people watch them and have people score them. But he put out contract with Black America, and no average citizen got to do the knowledge, nothing. See, when you say stuff like that, when you say stuff, and I'm saying you, but also anyone that's on that FBA shit, any of that ADOS shit, you're trying to get what you think your people deserve, which is really you, and try to get a win by trying to do what politics does by separating. You see what I'm saying? So basically, right now, what you're doing is being the minister. Because right now you're qualifying the separation that the doctor's doing. You see? See, the thing is, though, every single community, though, is going to have to fend for themselves as far as doing certain things, because they have unique problems. And I agree that they have to deal with on their own, right? Like, for example, a Dominican population has to deal with immigration issues that a Puerto Rican population doesn't, right? But the direct rape of a country, right? The massive, the changing of the entire culture of a country and all of these things, right? The mental health, all of these things that are particular with colonization are things that the Puerto Rican has to deal with that is different than, let's say, the Dominican, right? But when you get in line with saying things like, we don't deserve the same things, nor striving for the same things, See, that's a way of dehumanizing. You see? And if you saying it because you just saying the party line that you learning, right? Or if you're saying that deliberately, I'm letting everybody know that that is some bullshit. That is some bullshit. That's why the Father told us to always have the black and have your yellow seed with you. If you brown, have your black seed or your yellow seed with you. All the seeds with each other, because when we start dealing with politics, as the Father did, the Father didn't say, I'm just gonna have it for these gods that are these gods here, and then not these light skin, you know what I mean? Not the yellow seeds, not these, you know what I mean? See, the Father got lucky because he was building a community in one area, and they were massively populated in that one area, right? But you think that he would have politically acted the way you just said if he was dealing with gods and earths all over the world? He would have asked for a different way of thinking. You see? So that's some shit that will fly off in the common world. You go on Twitter, you'd be a superstar in Black Twitter, but that's not that. What you just did there is the way you're speaking is dehumanizing. You know what I'm saying? All original peoples have most of the stuff that they need, and the stuff that they deserve are really in line with the same thing. You see what I'm saying? You're not even looking at the types of oppression that are very nearly similar, right? This idea, to me, of the possibility of reparations is really the focus for many of the separating aspect, right? What is going to cause this the separating aspect of what makes African Americans have their own distinct platform versus anyone else. And then everything else will have, as you saw in the contract with Black America, if you've seen it, very reparation, a very affirmative action type feel, you see? Because apparently affirmative action is other people getting everything that Black should have gotten. The truth is that what corporate, you tell me that when you go into the corporate world, right? You tell me that you lost your good job getting inside the corporate world because of a Puerto Rican, because of a Dominican, because of Mexican. You usually lost it because of a white woman. You know what I mean? But be careful about politics, because what it does though is that it actually separates though and causes that dehumanizing language. That's something that we wasn't taught that. We was taught to notice that. Halftime said, peace, think worldwide as well. Trump has had babies placed in cages because they were illegal immigrants. This country was founded by illegal immigrants. It has made it more difficult for people who want to spread devilishment. See elevation though, right? You're the true and living God, and you just told halftime. See, now I know how you was on some bullshit. I just had to read more comments. So now I can officially say that elevation used on some bullshit. And you probably was the nigga that was writing on the other post telling me that I can't speak on things. So now you're invading this shit. Now I'm remembering though, you know, did you read my column though, where I bombed the shit out of you? Did you read it? Let me put a link here, right? Because you think that because I'm here, I'm not in the school like right now, like, you know, you come on, you can safely talk shit and everything like that. Listen, Nate, I'm out. I'm out there. You see what I'm saying? I've been doing this for 20 plus years. If you think that the bullshit that you're going to come in my Father's name, Allah the Father's name, and be peddling that bullshit like you know what the fuck you're talking about, you could get dead yourself right out of this classroom. You know, it just took me a minute to realize that you the damn fool that I was talking about. I'm talking to you civilly, and you just use it as a gateway to say your stupid ass shit. You know what I mean? For those that don't know the complete context of me bombing this fool over here, it's called elevation. And the more problem I have, though, is that we don't see elevation. We just see de-elevation, right? But is that you're coming in here saying, like, Allah is God of the entire universe. And you said kids, the children, not illegal aliens. They're not illegal aliens, though. They ain't no aliens. They didn't come from outer space, right? I don't care if they're black, brown, red, yellow, white, whatever color you want to call them. It's the children. The Father's foundation was the children. So you know where I'm at, though. I'm at 2122 7th Avenue nearly every Thursday. Okay? You tell me when you get there, we go around the corner. We go around the corner behind Apollo, and we discuss the lack of humanity that you have. Because since you care about so many people here, right, that we can see what it feels like, right, to get caged up. Since you want to be caged up, you coming in our nation's name, in our the Father, Allah the Father's name, and you talking that bullshit. And the first thing you do to make sure that your people get what they need is to say, fuck the babies. That's what you just said. There's someone here in this chat here who's coming in the name of Allah. That is Allah the Father, who founded the 5% nation of gods and earth, who basically said, because he's of who he came from, that the agenda is more important because it's fuck the children. There's a pause there. Because what type of piece of shit has this world made you? What type of piece of shit has this world made you that other children are not important to you? Those illegal aliens are not my concern. What the fuck are you? What the fuck are you? Technically, an African American is barely legal in this country. Since you're using country mandates, the truth is that you're lobbying here. Everybody's lobbying foundational Black Americans because they're scared of being made illegal. We go to the Dominican Republic and we see how simple it could be for them to say, you know what? Everybody that was Haitian for this generation, all the way back to this generation, y'all ain't really Dominican no more. Y'all got to leave. Just like they could do for any Puerto Rican and say, hey, listen, you're not a citizen here, though. We got enough and we did our thing. Y'all got to go, whatever. We broke in citizenship. Y'all is quick to act like you've been dehumanized so much that the only way to fight back is to be inhumane. And I'm telling you, in this classroom, it's better to return to the essence righteously than keep living another day being a piece of shit like that. Let me quote you this piece of shit again. Those illegal aliens are not my concern. Well, then go fuck yourself. Because the babies are the greatest, though. All my elders, though. Firstborn prince. Knowledge me, Allah, my enlightener. Why is Jamel Allah? Why is Jamel Allah remembered in perfection who loved the children? He never had children of his own. He loved every child like his own. Love mine, love theirs, love his. Those out there, downtown, uptown, crosstown, downtown, right? All like his own. We talk about the elevation of certain things, and you talk about policy, right? Obama set the record for sending people back. He set the records, he set records for deportation. And then we see Trump elevated, though, to do that. Be careful with advocating the dehumanization of people, because the argument is, that's not me or my kind. Stupid ass fool. You come in the name of Allah. Who says they don't just call you a Muslim combatant and just toss your ass to the Middle East? Because they might love a foundational Black American out there, right? Go, you know what? Go read my column, troll. Go read my column, though. Because if it's that important for you to be on this class, if it's that important for you to be watching the videos of posts put up by Mecca on the Law School in Mecca channel and everything like that, then it's important enough for you to make a date on Thursday to go to the school when I'm there. And then we could talk about the lack of humanity that you have. Let's see how inhumane you are. Halftime, that was devilishment, though. Devilishment. This country was built by foundational Black Americans. Yeah, more bullshit rhetoric. You're not able to speak for what we need. You're more qualified to speak for what Puerto Ricans need. Thank you, robot. Thank you. Thanks. And yet everything I said is actual fact. Right? I see people question him on the comment. That's what the Father taught us. That's what, when you got knowledge yourself, that's what they said, fuck the babies. That's what Yaqub taught. Right? Destroy the black, save the brown. So now the strategy is what? Right? You do some reverse. Hey, y'all niggas wish you was as good as Yaqub. Y'all niggas wish you was Yaqub. Yaqub was a superstar. Yaqub was Hall of Fame. He took the devilishment that we had, devilishment like that we had mentally. And instead of having it flower and corrupt an entire Quran of 25,000, maybe even plus years beyond that, he focused it into a 6,000-year rule. Right? Into a 6,000-year rule. 6 out of 25 isn't even a quarter. It's just almost a quarter, but not a quarter. You wish you had the strength to do what he did. In the last 100 years, though, who's built this country? Since the country's foundation, though, right? Who rightfully owns at least 5 states in this country? Yeah, the Mexican brothers down there. You guys want to talk about oppression? There are levels to this. There are levels to this. There are things that people ought to have, that African Americans ought to have a continuous reparation. But the can of worms is what the devil not ready for. You see what I'm saying? The can of worms is what I'm not devil for. You need to strip that elevation Allah, because you haven't elevated anything, and you certainly aren't Allah. Elevation, my fucking ass. You know what? Let me give you something though, right? If it wasn't for Puerto Ricans and my Cuban brothers, you wouldn't even know how to use congas. You wouldn't even know how to use congas, bongo, timbale, and all those nice little vegetables together polyrhythmically. Go do your research. See? Say most Latinos, Hispanic identify as white. Most African Americans that would want to pass as white have already passed. I could show you the documentation. Ja King, elevation isn't deviating, he's separating, right? Knowledge, I haven't read We Were 8 Years in Power by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I do have that book. I haven't read it. I've read other books by him. You know, let me know if it's worth reading. Mr. G1 says, I see today's math. The Bruce Lee quote, knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. That's a nice quote right there. You know, one of the great scholars, I don't always look at Bruce Lee like, I don't really learn from Bruce Lee much about Kung Fu as far as fighting, because his athletic ability was so beyond the norm, certainly beyond anything I'm close to, that I don't always try to learn from him, because I always realize that he might be doing stuff that is just, undoable. Like, it's like trying to learn basketball from Jordan or an NBA, or they're beyond. But Bruce Lee is great, a great thinker. When you students, when you email me and stuff, I have a lot of great books on him. So especially the Tao of Kung Fu, which he wrote completely. All of it, a lot of his other books are posthumously, because he wrote journals daily. He wrote about what he was reading, what he was studying, his thoughts and his ideas. Aside from formulating training systems and developing the fight system. Yeah, I see my brother Infinite Mind taking up and arguing with basically a cracker coming in the name of Allah. A dark cracker. That's what you are. You're as useful as a dark cracker. You know? Elevation, you can't speak on the original, man, because you're not being very original. Very grafted right now. Right, Saladin, Commonwealth is colony, though. Commonwealth, if you do the research, though, it's just a fancy word, though. There's no Commonwealth. You know what I mean? And technically, Commonwealth means free associated state. You can't be free and associated and then be a state and then not be actual state of the United States. So it's all just fancy terminology in the history of the country. Yeah. But, yeah, I'm better off speaking for my group. Yeah, okay. Yeah. You know what my group is, Elevation? My group is the 5% Nation of Gods and Nerds. I'm the true and living God. How about that? How about that? Because for over half my life, that's what I've been representing. When all yous were watching the No Limit films and shit, whatever the hell you was doing down south, when you was getting crunk, I was up there teaching the black, the brown, the yellow, and the white. All the human families. All the human families. While you out here talking about making a group thing, and they ain't got no lobby, ain't got nothing. You just got like empty promises and shit, and you know. Yeah, I love to see. There's always a nigga that comes in with reverse eugenics, though. It's always a nigga with reverse eugenics. You know what I mean? And then they use political policy as a way. Each political group they got their own thing. If I build with the God of these Chinese or the God is Indian, and they poly with their own, and they poly something for their community, that's what they doing. That's what African Americans need to do. But when you start talking like that, when you start talking that your choice of a politician, remember somebody that represents you, it's okay that they be that they dehumanize any other group, as long as they don't dehumanize you, then you've lost all of your humanity in the name of that. In the name of that group, you've lost your humanity. First group that the father was about. What was the first group that the father was about? The babies, the children. That's what the father was about. You know what I mean? Don't know nothing about no revolution. This shit is a joke here. All I know is not the God. Right? People who built this country, though. That's me, nigga. And if you talk about built this country, though, then you have to put Mexicans in there, because they built this country. They built a whole chunk. If you coming from down south, though, they built the shit that you want. So, y'all niggas are so funny, niggas. All right. If anybody else has some real questions, though, I'm just gonna overlook, slide, move, the de-elevation. You know, good question, Genus. I guess it boils down to identity politics versus impactful politics. Are they mutually inclusive? See, the thing is, right? You could be given an identity, but then how do you organize under that identity, right? And that's the whole thing. You know what I mean? He thinks, when you say foundational Black Americans, you think that that's the first time that African Americans, any type so-called African Americans, have tried to organize under one banner and stuff? Everything is local. Everything is local. You know. All right, I lost my place here because it just. I see some funny. I haven't got up to the comments after I went nuts. What is brown? Most so-called brown people identify as white. Do some damn research though about where that originates from. You know what I mean? How the census, once Puerto Rico was taken over as a colony, how it went from about 40% of the population being white, and then it went to all the way up to about 90% white. Okay, come on, man. Come on, yeah, some bullshit here. You know what I mean? The truth is that the African American population, though, most African Americans that end up this light end up passing. And that's why y'all don't see a lot of light skin. Do that history. Saladin with a more useful question. What was it that motivated you to become a writer, Lord? I'm curious. Oh man, I wasn't motivated to be a writer. I was I was put with a pen in my hand from the get. My old Earth, who returned to the essence and years ago, remembered imperfection. She always wanted us to speak articulately, intelligently, um, so and not to be discriminated against because we have an accent, Spanish accent, things like that, right? She's very obsessed with that. So she always had us right, you know what I mean? And she had us read a lot of books. So it didn't these books weren't necessarily like real keepers, but always reading something. Whatever we like to read, as long as her it wasn't the content. I wasn't reading any deep books about PR history and anything like that. But she always had us read books that were of a higher level, a higher grade level. You know what I mean? And through the summers and stuff, we always had to read. Always had that magical amount, 20 pages every day. Um, and we had to know it. We had to really know it. And once I got into college, because I had good grades and stuff, and um, it was her again who said, you should have some extracurricular activity in college. And I said, you know what? The only damn thing I know how to do is write. And the only thing I like is hip hop. So the two just merged. I started writing about hip hop. I realized I didn't have enough music. I didn't have enough records to talk about it as a genre. And I loved it. And so I decided to beast mode and fast forward, 25 plus years. You know what I mean? Now, most of my motivation to write those because I can, because I can do it. Um, because I'm obsessed with words and I love reading, so it all works out. Absolutely, infinite mind. Problem is, we've been so oppressed by whites that we do it ourselves. We're supposed to have knowledge of self. Supposed to, yeah. Fell off the station. Fell off the station. Elevation fell off the station. Okay. On a lighter note, my stupid ass read that as adios. Yeah, that's what he wants to say, but uh Yeah, everybody's capitalizing. You know, it's funny. We're supposed to be the original people. We're supposed to do something that the Father taught us. You know, you think that you really think that when the Father was teaching, he was saying like the original man is black, brown, yellow. You think that took on really good? You think that when he said don't carry guns like all these other black militias, Black Panthers and stuff, don't be carrying weapons, things like that. You think that went good? You think that when he said address everyone with the words peace, though, you think that wasn't hardcore enough for the people of the 60s? Come on, man. You got to have a backbone to deal with peace, you know? As soon as you just turn green. Yeah, you're damn right I get green. You know, I get green, you know? People are full of shit. They've taught no one out there. You know, it's funny because people want to talk about these designations and these groups that they're a part of and shit, and they haven't gone out there and they don't even do the legwork for that group that they're in. Go get some flyers and go get some FBA flag pins. They got the flag pins. You go order them. Go get your flyers, write out the flyer and say, here, this is what we should be doing. Don't be coming here and tell this spick what to do, right? Especially when you don't even know shit about politics. Yeah, I got caught though. He inspired the last column when I was writing Troll Street Life, but because it's a larger point, you know what I mean? People try to debunk the usefulness of stuff that I bring by, by denouncing me like I would be ashamed of being, you know, having Boricua lineage. I was saying he's definitely a mystery god now. You know, and I'm surprised that there aren't more. You know, the majority of everyone on the chat here since I've started this has been great, right? Peace, Saladin. I appreciate those words, though. Got love for you too, God. You know, how could we let politics, you know, how could we let politics have us say, well, Trump didn't do anything to me, though, whereas he blatantly whistles. It's not even a dog whistle anymore. Blatantly whistles the promotion of the highest savagery of the police, right? Overtly salutes the the devilishment done by militias, right? And even advocates. You know, Proud Boys, they're not all that though. Proud Boys ain't really like doing shit like that. But they advocate violence. That's their motto. It's and again, I was talking about fascism. If you study, let's say Proud Boys is a great good Proud Boys, stand back, stand by, right? When he said that shit, which is mad funny to me. Um, that was exactly what he was doing. Proud Boys isn't really like a typical white militia. They're basically they're a pro-Trump group that is basically anarchist. So to denounce anarchy, he just saluted the anarchy that's more like in line for him because the Trump anarchy leads to fascism. You know? So you gotta study that. You know what I mean? True 120 piece. Wise Jamel was a beautiful man. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I miss him a lot. Halftime learning when to just listen to someone like that and go, yeah. Uh Mind detect, man. See playing Yakub's. Yeah, some Yakub shit, you know. I'm not with any of that shit though. And I knew he was on some bullshit because he's like, oh, I heard you. He said to somebody else on one of my videos in the Allah School of Mecca page that I'm on, and he commented to somebody else. Are you the one that uh took it to Bowen Mastermind and shit like that? You know, was rude and shit. Rude. Yeah. How can you be polite? Why do you have to be polite to a eugenicist? You know what I mean? The fuck. You know, people talk about eugenics, right? You go tell me first, though, that the life I've had, the career I've had in all the fields that I've endeavored in, that they haven't been useful to humanity. Then you tell me that eugenics also works because if someone had seen no me as a child though, and see me as a 3-pound baby, barely alive in an incubator for mad long, but not really gonna make it. That would have been like, man, we just did that. That's not really the quality seed, right? That's the problem with eugenics. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't take into account the supreme mind. 793rd said, dude came with that same uncivilized, argumentative, ignorant energy to Dark Kim's class, patting himself on his back, yelling all defensive, over talking, making incorrect assumptions as foundation. Yeah, people like that don't dare come into class, in the physical classroom though, because we're not about that. Not about all that shit though. Falsely coming in, well, yeah, you get the lesson now. I was right. I was clapping. Yeah, damn, it's crazy. Damn. True Divine allow 120 apiece. Can we change the chat? What does a civilized person do pertaining to the vote? Thank you, True Divine. Thank you. What does a civilized person do pertaining to vote? Do I vote? Who do I vote for? Why? Look, if you haven't voted, if you never voted before, like if you're really young and you never voted for before, I absolutely think you should vote for this president and everything else. I want you to get used to doing research, and I also want you to get used to if you're going to complain about the democratic process, you have to understand how the democratic process works. Though it's not our design. This is their mutation of our indigenous and African systems. Especially the indigenous systems, a mutation. So it doesn't go from families to community and then to representation. It's more like a representation. A representative comes out and strives to represent for people and then learns about them later directly. It's very awkward. You know what I mean? That's why certain people, like, let's say you see, a lot of the sisters like Cortez and stuff like that, people like them a lot because they know more about their communities than the average politician, which is so supposed to be done, but it's so blatantly awkward now that they seem incredible, but they're pretty much doing what they ideally were supposed to do. So if you never voted before for president stuff, that only happens 4 years. There's other things to vote for too. Go do that, because I want you to see the process. I want you to see like what I want you to also decide like what would be the things that you don't like and do like, and have priorities. You know what I mean? Because even the most well-meaning, let's say if they exist, the most well-meaning politician could only do so many things. You know what I mean? Guaranteed that because they control blocks. Politicians cover areas. They usually populated by like people of an ethnicity, right? But they're usually not populated by people that have a united common cause. And that's the difference between any democracy you see today and like indigenous communities. Because even if you have blocks of the same ethnicity or race, you usually don't get a consistency, So unfortunately, they're not willingly monolith, right? So they haven't decided like, yo, these are our priorities, and if you have most of them, we're gonna go for this guy. Like they're not able to do that. And unfortunately, because of the mixing of neighborhoods, you don't really get that. And that's why, to me, I think that as a community, whatever our community is made of, we need to unite those original people in those communities and then come up with some type of policy for it, right? If you do vote, right? I haven't voted in years, and I am voting now. I think we're supposed to do the early voting. Me and my sister are supposed to do the early voting this weekend, and yeah, I don't like Trump. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of the things he's done has been elevating devilishment in a chaotic fashion, right? So people are saying like it makes people awake, but it's also chaotic. So what are you trading for? An enemy that you think you see visibly, but is actually blurry because he's moving everywhere, or one that moves consistently, but is always behind the shadows, i.e., like Biden, right? I also think for me personally, what really makes it not just the kids in cages, because that's good enough for me, but because I have never heard of that. You know what I'm saying? And I've done the research. I even have some of the literature, the journalist that wrote the book on it. But I haven't seen this be a policy until now, which also supports, uh, you know, uh, you know, trafficking of children. You know what I mean? This is a way to a gateway to that. You know, to easily gateway to that. So to blatantly link that as far as policy is a devilishment that could extend. It's not my people that they're worried about. Like that easily could extend to children that are thrown into foster care and things like that. You know what I mean? And thrown in the system. One thing when you do devilishment, right? When a country does devilishment, a government does devilishment, and you're like, no, it's not going to hit me. Once they actually do it, extending it to everyone else that they want to extend it to is actually not that difficult though. All we have to do is watch, look at Nazi Germany. You know what I mean? They didn't kill Jews. They were killing who they were killing. They were killing the gypsies, and the gypsies were really the Romani people who were the original people. Okay. The original people that still hung to their original cultures and everything like that. You know what I mean? And different shades, black, brown, yellow, but they were original. You know what I mean? And once they killed them, then they needed a system to find the particular these white ethnics that they were trying to get out, and that's where IBM comes in the first databases and stuff and the information. So they had to use money trail to figure out a lot of the Jews that were really Jews. It's not like you break into a home and they go hey, and they all sound like Woody Allen. You know what I mean? Like, you had to do something, but any vote that we do right now isn't in the block. You're saying like Puerto Ricans don't have no united vote. I could find a million people can't even decide what they want for the island. A lot of people don't even care about the island. Um, a lot of people in my extended family, they're pro-Trump. You know what I mean? Just I don't even know why. I really don't get why. I really don't. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah, you know what I mean? And it could be just as simple as that they have a job as a cop, or they have a life that they want to continue. A lot of people could vote for a lot of original people vote for the same president again, just if their life was good during those years, which is a horrible way to decide things. It's totally like selfish. So we don't really have a system. But if you didn't vote, if you never voted before, haven't in a while, I would say, go check the system. The best way to understand the system and to see its workings is to go see how it works. You know what I mean? And also, too, to use it as a tool. I think everything is a tool, you know what I mean? To see what's on it, though. A lot of the ballots often have things like policies to be decided and things like that when you get into the more local ballots. And if you go into the presidential ballot, you're going to find that you're going to get more used to this process. And then you might, if you start something in the process, you get more used to the process. You know what I mean? And the thing is, the father was very astute politically, locally. Okay, so who do you vote for? Hey, the truth is, like, hey, listen, do you want a chaotic devilishment? Because there's no way I will accept that this pandemic was planned, um, in that sense that they put the virus out there. I really feel like they've been doing so much experiments on animals. There was a report in Democracy Now! Weeks ago, about 2 or 3 months ago, about because the animals are so denatured through GMOs, there's a lot of new animal-borne viruses, and they say that this is from that too. You know what I mean? Again, I don't put stock in the immensity of the white man. They put so much money into military, and they put so much money into bio warfare and stuff. These things are gonna leak out. You know what I'm saying? And and then also the food industry in the most negative way. That remember, because a made up food, a processed food is a product. A natural food is something from nature. You could copyright a product. So GMO seeds, GMO foods, all of those things. So this whole country can decay into chaos, um, I'd rather not have it be with someone that is actually very, very astute in galvanizing the weak, the weakest parts of white people's mentalities. So he's been able to, as a leader, have the average white citizen manifest the weak and wicked side. And that's something that no matter what anyone says, um, there hasn't been a president to do that. You know, Reagan was like the superstar with that, and you know he's beat him by leaps and bounds. You know what I'm saying? Knowledge said, oh, Infinite said, taking illegal immigrants ain't his concern. That's a dark skinned white man from Texas. Yeah, you know it's funny because it is his concern, right? Because here's the devilish thing: if he is in favor of that, it actually, on an evil level, it benefits his people. You see what I'm saying? That's what he's thinking. There's less people here, things like that. So it's a totally Republican mind state. It's a piece of shit attitude. You know what I'm saying? Um, to people that most likely aren't. See, you know, we talk about who built this country. If we talk about the poorest people who's building this country in the last 100 years, gotta look at the brown. It's not really the black. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the black suffers in the most unique way, because they're in the middle ground of of nowhere, you know, and so their oppression is uniquely horrid, right? But it doesn't mean that other people aren't being slaves in this current USA. Knowledge said that Sunez, me, that's me. He has a very interesting take on Trump. He calls him the first white president because he was the first one elected strictly due to racial backlash. It's an amazing book. Uh, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say strictly due to racial backlash, but definitely predominantly because we could look at other presidents though. I forget the president that you know, like certainly if Lincoln wasn't killed though, the next president would have been voted in similar fashion. You know what I mean? But and in history, you know, Reagan, you know, but definitely, yeah, definitely, you know. What let me see. I gotta go back. What was the name of that book? I should have copied it though. So oh, the Ta-Nehisi Coates, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I think I do have that book. Um, but yeah, definitely overwhelmingly. Now that said, before Obama, white power was the status quo. Obama came and put a question to all that. So Trump is elected out of white fear of losing their power and status. Yeah, just the imagery of it. The imagery of it. Definitely knowledge. The imagery of it. Because I really feel that Obama was voted because rebellion was ensuing. You know, rebellion was ensuing, and the whole point was to squash it. Warrior series. I'm not familiar with what you guys are talking about with that. Um, I'm in the dark here. Damn, it skipped all the way to the bottom again. I gotta scroll back up. Okay. That series is just what's it called? The series, that Warrior series. Let me know. You're texting, you don't like them. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. You know? Yeah, great. You know, with this knowledge itself, you know, the whole thing was like to just continue the horrid relationships we have with other original peoples. You know, yeah. That's exactly what the father thought. Yeah, good job. You know what I mean? Fucking piece of shit. Knowledge. I got a question that I sent to your email regarding so last week. You said Yaku was really wasn't really six, and you took six through the math. Yes, I did. Yes, yes. Ah, I knew I missed a question. It was your question. I knew I missed a question. I had thought I answered all the questions and stuff, and I didn't. It's good lineage you got. Knowledge. Okay. You know, it's a good question. You asked like, what was Elijah thinks? It's sometimes it's not always relevant what Elijah was thinking, because he just was teaching what he was just was reiterating what he was taught. You know what I mean? And because Yakub did something that was really difficult, it could be seen that he was just a prodigal, not prodigal, you know, a precocious genius. You know what I mean? So you know, it doesn't necessarily mean, you know. Master Wong, yeah, I haven't checked out Master Wong in a while. He's dope, definitely dope. You know, definitely dope. I like Master Wong a lot. It was Infinite Mind who put me onto Master Wong. You know what I mean? Definitely, definitely dope. Right, right, yeah. You know, I just think that you know, who's to say that? I think a lot of the degrees they would have known what they meant. You know what I'm saying? But they were written very biblical. So remember, Elijah breaks down the Bible a lot. So to continue to write in the biblical fashion for analysis is something that is not uh you know, out of bounds, you know. So even if he didn't have the math and say 6633, that was something I was taught by my enlightener. um it doesn't mean that they just didn't see that he was destined, you know, destined to be that, you know. Because remember, we don't always know the exact context, you know. We can't know 100% sure the complete mentality of Fard and Elijah. That's why it's so important that you read all of Elijah's books, though, so you get some glimmer of at least the nature of how he builds and how he teaches, you know. But it's a very, very good question. Very good question. All right. Now it's a take the third degree. Why is North America the poor part? I know we can use symbology, say the poor part of the woman and all that. Why did Elijah give that answer? It's you got the best part, worst part, poor part, right? Obviously, where the original people coming from is the origin is the best part. It's the poor part because it's not developed yet. All right, poor is something that could go either way. You know what I'm saying, right? So that's really the case there. You know what I'm saying? And Europe is definitely the, you know, the worst part. So on that level though, that's what it would be. You know, as far as like land mass and land quality, you know, Africa is, you know, the greatest land masses ever, but there's so much fertile soil in North and South America, you know, originally, not, you know, not now, but, you know, it's all denatured and shit like that, right? Saladin said, "Peace. Actually, absolutely hate my crown. Give me a now wide cap in memory." Well, all right. I don't know the context for that blurting out of that. Now said North America was different when Columbus came, populated by original people, fertile land. What made it the poor part? Yeah, it's really that it could be taken over. You know what I'm saying? It could be taken over. You know what I mean? Um, and remember, the way the degrees insinuate the the population migration they focus on is the migration of the 16 to 20,000 years ago of indigenous people, from, you know, indigenous original people migrating to America, right? When he said the Indians were exiled, when you're exiled, no matter what you say, exile is something that was forced. Okay. And when he says poor part, though, these are the poor part. They were the ones that probably were not bearing witness to the plan, the history that was to be written, and decided to live away from that. So they became the most gullible people. And as we see, time has shown that to be proven, unfortunately. Doesn't mean that they weren't civilized or anything like that. It does mean that they were gullible, you know what I mean? And that they weren't prepared to deal with this, you know, in that way. Ah, okay. So I got you. What do you think Elijah meant by party? All right, I just answered that. I'm reading the same question again. He's going to give us. Mhm. It's really about the people. You know what I mean? About the people. Because remember, when you think about this being the poor part, it was very, for the type of civilizations that were here, it was easily conquered. You know, um, it was definitely set for the task. Um, Now, would like if you look at it this way, right? Because they fought, the indigenous fought, and they allied. They did as best as they could, right? So it wasn't like they were weak, um, but they were also gullible to it. They didn't see it coming. If they had raided Africa, would it be as successful to take over? So in those respects, it would be the poor part. You know what I mean? Right? I think it's the actual presence of ignorance that makes a conquering, the conquerors coming, make it effective. So they would want to conquer the poor part, not the best part. All right. Okay. I'm just skipping some of the interplay of you brothers talking amongst yourselves. Quatis, peace, Quatis. All right. Good to see from you here, man. You know. Uh, would today's math wisdom be considered a reuse of or deeper contemplation on how one can put an idea to work? Wisdom is what? The using of knowledge, though. So it could be a merging of two different things, you know what I mean? One way and another way. You know what I mean? Because remember the ways that you have, and when they merge with people as a whole, that's what makes a culture. You know what I'm saying? And finding a common ways, you know what I mean? So the interaction of different ways, the interaction of wisdom upon wisdom is what borns culture, because culture is the interaction of different forms of wisdom, right? I saw it as setting an experiment in motion, determining its relevant function, allowing the expression of the idea to openly connect with the outside world. That's heavy-handed though, but it's not out of bounds, right? It makes sense. I see where you're going with that, Quatis. An experiment in motion, right? That's one. And then determining its relevant function and allowing the expression of that idea to openly connect with the outside world, right? Okay. RPPs, yeah, never waste a dilemma. Isn't that what disaster capitalism is, right? Definitely. Okay. All right. Okay, Warrior is the title? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, where okay, I lost my spot here. All right, all right. Okay. Malik, North America if we say the Americas, North America, South, it's not really poor in natural resources, though. You know, it doesn't eclipse Africa, but it isn't poor. It's actually pretty. You know, like the indigenous people had massive amounts of crops and interlocking societies, and they were bustling. You know, they were bustling. So it's really on a deeper level. You know what I'm saying? They what they had though that was poor was that they didn't have the concept of a military or any type of defense from the outside world on that higher level, you know, and that's really the problem. You know what I mean? The poor part, they actually entered nations that had no real military. So they were overly yin, you would say. They were, or in many respects, you could say that they were by default matriarchal, you know? Oh man, that's crazy. So Dark Him was taking, he takes calls. I didn't notice. I didn't know he did that. Um, there's, you know what? I cannot find like the actual like the actual exiling. I find the research of migrations, and of course, though the first Americans were African by David Imhotep talks about not just that one migration, but the migration 50,000 years ago. So you have 16 to 20, and then which is in the lesson, and then you have a one that's like 50,000 years ago. So the original people have been migrating here to America a long time, and this two major migrations are like the clash that makes the Native American. Um, in positive, in peaceful sense, and in also in a violent sense, depending on where it was. Um, but to find particular documentation of a particular exile, that's something I haven't really found either. You know, RPP, RP Reese. How do you see Asiatic, and should we direct our research to find a name and people? Asiatic. Asiatic isn't a term that you have to look too hard for. You know what I mean? It's why did he use that word Asiatic? You know what I mean? Right? Why did he particularly use that word as opposed to, you know, obviously wasn't going to use African. He wanted to have, he could have said Afro-Asiatic. He could have used all these things. He used Asiatic. He didn't use Oriental. He didn't use Asian. Uh, I think it was the thing that closest come with something unique that represents the Pangea aspect, the united land of the original man. You know what I mean? Um, from that Asia and attic, you know, the storehouse of that original place. You know, damn, this thing keeps jumping when I move it. Peacewise, Prince. Okay, all right. So you're out there with Y King and one of my great teachers, Save Your Knowledge, right? Yeah. Much of the style, much of the nature, much of the heart of pedagogy that I teach with has a lot to do with saving knowledge out there in Morocco, Seattle. You know, that's the big bro. You know, I learned so much from him. Okay, that's peace. All right, that's peace. Okay. Then, oh, so you're in great hands. Then you know you're with White King. You know, definitely in great hands. You know what I mean? Um, right? Absolutely. All right, let me look at my notes to see. I want to copy down some of the things that we built on. I'm just writing some things. Okay, you guys are really active. What about the word into orientation? And if that is not the word that was supposed to be there, why do you think so many gods have that word in their lesson? I hope you have it in there. That's the word it should be. Into orientation, just an old word that nobody uses. It's an old sociological word, right? Literally, if you break it down and see its original context, like how it was used in old sociological manuals and papers, into orientation means when one culture of peoples and another culture of peoples that do not speak the same language has one of them sharing an idea to this other culture, despite them not speaking the same language, but is sharing an idea for them to engage with. That's what into orientation means, you know, right? Nobody uses that word anymore, though. I wonder why. But yeah, it should. It's really not a word that should be outdated, but they don't. Ah, smells good. Today's class though is in my humble abode. Okay, I was overworked today with a lot of great projects, so I wasn't able to get out there. It actually takes me 2 hours to get to the school, so I realized I wasn't able to finish, and I took the rare opportunity because we have such an online community now to say, you know what, I'm going to take advantage and actually just teach the class online today. I feel despicable about it because I love going to the school, but I really had a lot of work to do. You know what I mean? And truth be told, I wanted to be up to date um, for this weekend because I want to be with my child and not have to worry about the work I have to do. So aside from my selfishness, we still have the class online though. And hopefully, it is useful to all those. But I'll be at the school next weekend, and continue on. The school is still open, you know what I mean? So if you go to the school, someone usually is there. Today's math, Gerald says, is wisdom, all born to culture. Okay, my ways and words express how I see my culture. Okay, I deal in this by teaching through action, being brought into existence through the womb and then mind. Womb and then mind. That's peace. That's it. That's it. That's the victory. Yeah. You should have into orientation. Interpretation actually means something totally different. So some people have interpretation though. That's wrong. Okay. Gerald continues. V is for victory and also the 22nd letter. It means to achieve a goal. Completing my fastest of late is how victory has been actualized in this life. Hey, yeah, man. Sometimes we count up our successes by what we get and what we buy, but we don't always count them up by what we build. You know what I mean? Good for you. Good for you. Always salute the brothers that fast because the best reason to fast besides the health is also that control. Like you don't have to submit to the desire to always have to go get food. And I'm saying as somebody that trains and always trying to get my weight up and stuff. You know what I mean? Uh, Jarrell, I forgot about the four devils, but I have this open here. You know why? Because we were dealing with a real devil on this thing. I forgot about building on the four devils. Uh, Halftime. Explain to me what SF is. Supreme what? I don't know what you meaning here. Peace God, thank you for that. Yeah, it's not into orientation, not a mistake. Okay, I'm gonna build on the four devils how I see them. A little bit of a different interpretation, right? Not into orientation, different interpretation. Still understanding though, but I'm not trying to into orientate you, because I'm coming in a language that you speak. Fakim was not the first power rule, not even of Medina. Um, yeah, there's more before him, Um, yeah, definitely not the first, but Certainly one of its greatest gods, period. Not just great power rulers, greatest gods ever. You know what I mean? Oh, solar facts. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Nobody asked me about solar facts. I was like, SF, what the hell is SF? I'm like, San Francisco, yeah, I was like, what do you mean how I draw from solar facts? What do you mean like today's degree? I mean, there's no 22nd second actual facts. I mean, solar facts. It's just the planets. Right? So the to me, solar facts was added to complete that 120, like just to complete it to make it have 120. I also think that solar facts though are not so much to be like built on per se, unless you really get into metaphor and you start like messing with the numbers and stuff. Like Dumar used to always do. Uh, what I would say is that the solar facts are really to lead you into other forms of study, like the other sciences, the cosmology, and things like that. You know what I mean? Which, by the way, that's going to be a speaking of solar facts. Astrophysics in a Hurry for People in a Hurry by Neil deGrasse Tyson is absolutely a great beginner's book for cosmology. Um, and when as I'm redoing my beginner book list, that's going to be on it. And I'm redoing the book list so that way everyone can have books that are available. So even if I can't get you all the books, most of them I can, and they're actually available where you don't have to pay like like hundreds of dollars to get a book. Of course, there are some books that you really should have, and I'll realign them like with asterisks and stuff because they're not available and stuff. All right, there's a lot of great questions here. Let me talk about the Four Devils for a minute. Let me find my this article I had. Not article, it's a piece for a book um, that I'm about to publish soon. Actually, it's a piece for a book that was going to publish soon, but I decided to use it for a different book, which is going to publish later. So there you go. Right? Shit. Let me see where I had it though. One of the things about the Four Devils, envy, greed, lust, hate, that I've always not really been into, and this is because of that. Those are envy, greed, lust, and hate are feelings. You know what I'm saying? So they cannot just be exiled, and they would always happen in some form or another, though, by just real people living. So that was the major problem I had when I was thinking about the Four Devils. You know what I mean? So this is a piece. I had different devils for you to think about. The first that I always think about, right, is procrastination, right? So this is my understanding. I'm gonna go back to the other questions people asked. I just wanted to. I had procrastination as one because once we start to realize we either know what we will do or we don't know what we will do, but we usually are faltered by not going into that, finding out what we should be doing or the plan of action or just instilling the plan. And usually throughout every single day, there are moments though of procrastination, moments where we don't kick it into high gear. And I don't mean like, I think a lot of it has to do with not looking at ourselves as something to constantly be aware of. In other words, when you learn martial arts though, you live a life where you're always constantly gauging your body, gauging how your head feels, how your mind feels, uh, how much energy you have. Like all of these things are always constantly gauged. I think we need to all do that though. And a lot of times when we do that, have this really strong sense of awareness, which is really the knowledge of self, then we won't be led by not having those answers and then just procrastinating, not doing things, you know and that's a big problem though. Procrastination, like it's definitely one of the the four devils to me, and I put it in there at the top when I had written this essay, and I still think so. The second one is someone that makes sense to when you see how I build. It's belief in the mystery God. And you say, no, but I already have knowledge of self, though. And what I mean, though, is that you're still just because we know that we're teaching what we think we know about the black man being God, that's me. I'm the original man. It doesn't mean that you aren't dealing with a mystery on so many other levels of things. And that's why gauging what you don't know, attacking what it is that is dominating your life, even though you know very little about it, is an important devil to master, because you could say who you are, but you may not be being that. You know what I'm saying? You may be dealing with heavy beliefs. So belief is something you need to bathe of constantly. It is like dirt, you have to constantly bathe of belief, you know. So that was my second one. The third one, um, it's I don't teach refinement, right? I don't teach refinement because people don't really um they don't learn it well. They don't realize that it's really focused, you know what I mean? So in this though, I had when I had written this, I still had refinement in my degree. And what I was redefining refinement as focus. This is something that people don't do when they build with refinement. They're really just using the definition of culture, and it causes a confusion with the language. That's why I don't teach it anymore. People misuse it. In my pedagogical, if it could be taught, then you know, I've tried, and people misuse it. Um, but to me, the one of the major devils though is not realizing our power, um, and then having lack of realizing and or using an unfocused power, and I'll change that to I'll take out the refinement. But if you use refinement in your degree, then that's how you should use it. Unfocused power, you know. Um, Even when we find out how strong we are, we usually misuse it though. You know, um, that's always something that, again, these four devils like procrastination. You see what I'm mentioning? These are things that don't go away, and their effect is the envy, greed, lust, hate. But these are roots, like what happens when people, um, have an unfocused power. They end up being greedy. They end up, you know what I'm saying? They get engaged lust. They get whatever it is, you know what I mean? So this is why I tried to write something that was more detailed in that way. Okay. And the last one is very ironic for today. The last one was in the wrong place again. All right, here we go. Number 4. Fourth one I had was lacking the way. And what I really meant was the mentality of the babies, the mentality of the babies as the ultimate directive. Let me explain what that means. Um, in everything that we do, the reason that you're the true and living God is because when you look at things, you think about, how does this relate to the babies? How does this relate to the best part? If you're not thinking about the children as the ultimate consequence of everything that you do, then you're already dealing with devilishment. You know what I mean? And that's why I could rip. You know what I mean? I could go rip and go off when I see somebody say that I don't care, and they call children illegal aliens. You know what I'm saying? Right? So that's what I mean, though. You know what I'm saying? But those are the four devils for me, though. I'm gonna go through the comments, keep answering stuff, and then if I get into questions about those four devils, I'll definitely ask. LT Station said, "Peace. Many gods have said that is a mistake, and some gods went to the school and came back with the lesson that they said good given by firstborn prince, and they said interpretation. Yeah, but it's not. It's not interpretation. Interpretation is a real word. Interpretation, though. Interpretation means something totally different, though. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's actually worse grammar than what it was. You was it CLR? Any of them? Yeah, I mean, whatever. It's not that. It's not a degree. Izanowit Gurma. Interesting name. Interesting name. Is the original man the highest manifestation of energy, and why not the woman? I assume that Izanowit Gurma is female. I'm gonna say this, right? I think that's a misdirection in question as to what people might have told you about why the original man is God, why the original woman is the earth. We say highest manifestation of energy. Somebody says highest manifestation of energy and shit like that. It isn't really the point of highest manifestation. The point is the origins of the energy. You see? The spark of it all. What is the spark? What is that yang spark that causes all this and that goes through, then would actually then go into the yin and cause that, what Bruce Lee used to call that bicycle, of creation, right? So when you say the highest manifestation of energy, though, it's really more the presence of all the energy as opposed to the manifestation of all the energy. The presence of all that, the ability to manifest all that energy, right? The ability to spark it, right? Because if the woman had a weaker threshold for that energy, right? Let's say, right? Because that's why we can't just judge it on levels, right? They're two different things. Then how could we reproduce through something of a lesser energy source? It's like almost like having a super battery put into a small, device. It doesn't matter how much energy is put into that device, it wouldn't do much. You know what I'm saying? That device would just have to be just as potent, though, right? Does When we look at man and woman, we look at creation, right? All of the aspects that spark creator that the creator has to spark all things are present in that original man, and all of the aspects that are overwhelmingly female, that what spark that manifest creation, are within that woman, right? So it's mainly about their dominant aspects, and whatever energy threshold that would be higher that a man had would be because he has control of all those aspects. And of course, the differentiation would be has the ability to initiate, i.e., like the Y chromosome, right? Even though not a, you know, feminist circles try to tell you that the Y chromosome is just like a corrupt mutation and shit, right? Which is some bullshit. But the point being, though, it's not really the way to look at it, though, like levels and stuff, right? Right? You look at things of levels, comparing two things that are totally different, it'll always be something that is bothersome. When it's two creator and creation in hand, right? LT, I'm sure that they have. I'm sure they have. You know what I'm saying? The set I have doesn't have that. You know what I'm saying? But interpretation, though, doesn't make sense because they made it interpretation. Okay, they didn't know. They come in and they make an interpretation. interpretation is always off something else. So that means that they heard something and then they interpreted it. So that means that there's something else that they heard, the original people, and then now they're you see what I'm saying? They made an interpretation of what? They interorientation actually is the correct word, but they didn't want to research it. So I'm sure for a lot of years, a lot of lessons would change because of the refusal to do research. You know? Cosmology is the study of the origins of the universe. That's what that means. Okay. I was told to study each planet and its properties, and I am, but I say it never hurts to hear how someone else draws from it. Yeah, I got to keep it real though. I don't really draw up the planets distinctly. Most of my research, like on cosmology and about astronomy, are usually based on the origins. That's usually my interest. Um, and in like the unified theory and the science of gravity and quantum mechanics and that relationship with it all. Those are the things that I end up studying the most and find of most interest. You know, but I can't say I've gone through a excursion of studying each planet where like I could tell you a planet and have a unique insight to each planet. Like I'm familiar, but I didn't study them where I'm like, okay, this is what I think about this planet, like on that level. So that's why I say that. You know what I'm saying? It just hasn't been where my interests have lied or what I find to be most useful, in the grand scheme of things. There are only so many things I can study, you know what I mean? And listen to all these records, right? Right? That word is not in all dictionaries. No, it wouldn't be any dictionaries. They don't use it anymore. Yeah, many people use that as their proof that it's not a word that's supposed to be in a lesson, and then it was not even the real word. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? It's some old texts that have it though. Maybe I can get a screenshot for you, okay? Of the interorientation. You know? Yeah, yeah. Right, yeah. And it may have worked for him too. By the way, there's less syllables in interpretation, so it would have worked with his flow. Okay. Genus Germ said, Peace. I see today's math as wisdom, all being born of culture freedom, and the supreme alphabet. Today's degree is victory. I see that as replacing destructive ways with positive ways. Right. Very good mentality because this is a build. Very good because it's a build that you can actually do something with it. A build where you can actually do something is very powerful. Oh, I did not see that. I don't really watch Lord Jamal's podcast. Not because I'm hating on his podcast or anything. There's a lot of things I disagree with him. I just don't get to watch a lot of podcasts and stuff. You know what I mean? I don't have time. Most of my time is writing, and then when I'm writing, I can't listen to other people because I'm writing what I'm thinking, and then reading, I can't listen to other people, and then I'm usually listening to hip hop because that's what I do. That's what I write about, and that's what I do my own podcast and shows on. But some of his, I was curious what happened with that Dr. Umar though, but I haven't had a chance to check it. Honestly, the only podcast that I check or show that I check like a talk show is usually Skip and Shannon because it's entertaining frivolousness for me. Uh, Genius said, I drew this up recently as a young child. Life stresses out. We develop habits or ways of coping. We carry those. Always checking. Having builds that remind you of checking yourself are always powerful. I think the disappointing thing is that Lord Jamel says things that can be so unresearched and illogical that it takes him out. I wouldn't strip a person's title for that though. Now you said some devilishment like this fool here said about the not caring about the babies and that babies aren't as concerned. They already let me know that they're definitely not a 5%, let alone a human. But it is what it is. Genius continues, if we desire to become healthier adults, we can look at those habits we developed on our way to being increasingly victorious. Yeah, man. Good connection. Good connection. That's true with Hip Hop 216. Yeah, yeah. Look. As far as like a lot of his topics and stuff, I just dealing in hip hop, I openly disagree with him. So you know, so I don't want to just be like on some bad mouthing him and shit like that, um, because I formally disagree with certain platforms he has. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not stripping a man's title though. In the history of Lord Jamal's career, just his music alone though has done a lot for our people. You know what I'm saying? Supreme scientist, when you think of it that way, absolutely, absolutely, And then what would that be? That would be the man and woman united. You know what I'm saying? The best part. You know what I mean? Good point. Life in general, Janice continues. Outside stress, unforeseen circumstances will go get in the way, but we have a choice in the way we deal with it. Examples of unhealthy habits include using of things or people, procrastination, anger, and outbursts. Oh my goodness, Jen, I just had one. I just had an anger outburst. There are options. However, once aware of our destructive habits, we can replace them with positive ones. Really, because I just had an outburst. I was ready to, I was, I was all Medina on it. I was, you hate the baby song? Oh man, that gets me. But examples of positive habits include self-care habits, uh, self-care. I said self-care. Self-care activities, creative activities, meditation. The point is to find the habits we want to replace and actively choose that to lead us to victory. Really well said, Genius. I'm just making jokes. It was definitely communicated properly over text, though. Yeah, definitely excellent build. Excellent build. Excellent build. Really appreciate that. Okay. Okay, we have about a half hour left, though. Let me see what I can throw out there that is useful that I have been collecting here. So, just some updates, though, and a little build on the books, though. Just to since we were talking about the children, right? I have a build on a plus lesson on understanding that I'm going to share with you guys the next class session. But also, I have a build on interactive planning, though, that they're all preliminary. You know what I'm saying? But they're going to get more detailed as we go, as I go along. Maybe I add some things, but they're all very useful. And I think that the way people have been building in here, they'd be useful in here. Um, One of the things is this, like the book list. I've been working a lot on the book list lately, and I've been working on the Earth book list. It is a book list for the Earth's and any young women, any young original women. And the key to the book list, right, is that it doesn't replace the beginner book list or any books that they should be reading. That beginner book list is for everyone, and technically all of humanhood. Really us getting the knowledge, those men and women getting the knowledge of self, right? But one of the key things is that the Earth asked me if I could make a book list that was particularly for women. So I thought, out of all these necessary books that I have on the list and other right, what would be books that were particularly about women that give insights that are particular to women only? So these are even books, though, that even the men will find very useful. And a lot of things in just going through this list, I realized how much I had learned from all these books and so much more. So in this book list, I'm breaking it up by subject. And the way I'm doing it, every single book will be I'm trying to make at least nearly all of the books available. So each book's that is on the list you'll be able to have, and that's how I want to make most of the book lists that I make. But they're broken down by subject, and they have some interesting sections that are different from the typical, so I even have, for example, because we're dealing with the original woman, I even have a section of books that are particular to not just the realities, right, like people's anecdotal, their life reality, but actual, like, for example, history of hair, history of the original woman's hair in all its forms, and the reality of that. These are things that us men don't always know about, and women should know the history of their own play, and not just feel alone in that. Uh, a lot of quality coming of age books, um, science books that are about science. A lot of books I have about women scientists, um, specific history, like we're talking about the infamous, the not the infamous, the famous, uh, the great book from Sertima, Black Women in Antiquity, um, books like that. So it's going to be a really great book list. You know what I'm saying? Um, right now, I have it. It might be about 25, 30 deep. Right now, I'm just looking for different, a couple of more sections to fill it out. You know what I mean? To fill out some of the sections and make them deep. Even in the coming of age novels, I've even put some coming of age novels of different sections, like, uh, the Puerto Rican, Dominican, African American coming of age stories, all different vantage points. You know what I'm saying? Because again, for those, right, we should be knowing about each of our cultures and distinctions, because they really aren't that different. And if they're different, then we should know. We should know what was the add-on. You know what I mean? So it's a list that will can always be expanded, of course, though, right? Like, for example, in coming of age novels, I can't put it take forever to find a novel from each and every written of quality. It has to be good, of every and available, of every single original people's ethnicity that exists, right? Like how many Latin American countries, African countries, um, original people from different countries that migrate into the U.S. Like it would be a whole bunch. So it's just the idea is to give you a general idea, and people will relate to something. You know what I'm saying? There's something that is in there. You know what I mean? And really be useful. But our education about the women is lacking. So this will only add on to the things that we should know. And if you're not only that though, but if you have daughters like I do, these are books that you would want them to have. You know what I mean? I thank the earth um for getting me onto this, because I found some books that are intriguing that I want my daughters to read, and I found some new ones and have been reading through them um throughout these last couple of weeks though. And that's why it takes time, because I want to validate the book's quality, and uh, by the time I start sharing the list, the vast majority I would have read completely through, you know what I mean? And all of them would have been inspected, you know, uh, you know, with a fine tooth comb as best as I could, if I didn't get to read the whole thing, right? But here's something that I always say, and bears repeating. When we think about books, right? There's three type of books you're collecting here. Not just subjects. We're not talking about subjects, right? But when you're building your library, right? You want to have your library to have certain challenges, right? So you got two. That's already the first two categories of books. Okay. You want to have your first category be hard, books that are hard, books that are going to be used. All the books should be useful to you. It shouldn't be some bullshit books. Some books will be referenced. Some books will be to read through completely. But you should have a lot of books though that are hard for you, challenging books that you're not even ready for. That's if you're a big collector. You should always start out though in your collection with books that you are immediately ready for and can tackle right away. Okay. Sometimes the books that we want are the ones that we can't tackle yet. So don't, if you're dealing with a budget, you don't want to get into that. Of course, because you're dealing with me, you can get a lot of these books you're ready for right now, and you could save on your budget, because that's the whole point of doing this. And that's the main two categories, though: how you gauge your books and how you develop your library based on a variety of subjects, and then also books that you're ready for, right? But we said we do things for the children. You should also be buying books, though, that are actually applicable to your children, books that are simple, right? And books that can actually be useful to them, you know? So, like, maybe you read From Niggas to Gods and don't have it, but you want to give it to your children, so you go get a copy. This is what I mean. You know what I mean? So don't throw away your books. And now that we live in a digital world, try to keep your physical books, and you know, give away these digital copies. You know what I'm saying? And if you want to give somebody a copy of a book and you don't have it digitally, ask me for it, because I might have it and you could share it with somebody. Um, that's peace. That's peace. Real Hip Hop Tuesday. How do you feel about the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People? I forgot who wrote that. I think I read that book a long time ago. Um, no, I didn't read this book, but I'm not really against like self-help literature and stuff. But his protocol, looking at it quickly, I mean, look, he says what you do independently, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, right? Focus, that gives you focus. First things first, right? And he breaks it down, your priorities. Then he deals with interdependence, how you think with others, develop relationships, seeking to understand, then be understood, synergizing, then always sharpening, growing. That's good stuff, man. I mean, that's all good stuff. I don't have a problem with that. You know, a lot of self-help literature is really useful, man. I don't really have a problem with it. Yeah, yeah. You know, absolutely, yeah. You know, there's I don't really flood the book list with self-help literature. You know what I mean? But sometimes people like to read that when they need like a spark, or they need to just realign and stuff. In my life, though, I've always self-help literature. I haven't read. I don't read it too much as for that, as much as just to know what people say. But a lot of the inspiring literature for me, like that kind of level, has usually been the aphoristic literature, like the ancient Zen, Buddhist, Taoist literatures, and things like that. Those usually been the ones that really spark me about the philosophies of man, and how to be and how to focus and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So it is good to have a couple of those selections in there. You know what I mean? I was just talking about Deepak Chopra's book, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, which actually was a good read too. So all these books can have some useful add-ons to them. You know what I mean? You take them as understanding, though they're not always like just because you actually may disagree with someone's build, you know, or you may prioritize it differently. You may not see that what they're saying is the most important thing. That's peace. That's peace. All right, very peace. That's peace. All right. Working out a little bit. Yeah. Y'all just didn't notice though. Um, this year in my training, I gained 10 pounds. So just training hard. Yeah. So that was the goal. That was, one of the goals in the training. One of the goals in the training. You know. So all right. All vegan too. All vegan too, as always. All right. Okay, back in my notes here. By the way, too, let me give you a little book of the week though, since it really fits in. Hopefully, I can find it. I had problems finding it, like I didn't have it or something. I don't know what's up with that. Wait, no. Did I? Let's see. It should be in here. I do have it. What's going on here? I thought I didn't have it. I have zero black belts. It's not really what we get in kung fu, so I wouldn't have a black belt. What I do have is a black sash in the Shaolin Kung Fu that I learned with my C gun, which is really we learned Biangzing metamorphosis, which is really the Shao. Uh, if you had to describe it, the animal styles, the Shaolin Kung Fu animal styles, with a core of Wing Chun, I would say. If I had to just describe it, you know, yeah, yeah, LT, that's a good thing because not only getting them, but the way books are written now and the way they feed you certain information that you may not be in agreement with, you got to read you got to read them before you read them to the kids. You know what I mean? Right? Oh, I'm all, yeah. Oh man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Been training a long time with the gods. You know what I mean? Our Seagung Bobby Whitaker was introduced to us, and most of us gods of a certain generation learned with him, and he taught us a lot of stuff, man. And he never, we never had to pay. We never. All we had to do was work hard, and you know what I mean. So it was a real blessing, And I have a book on martial philosophy, and this knowledge of self and how they interlock, and my thoughts on it. in a creative fashion, aphoristic fashion, I'm in the editing stages of, right? So, uh, generally, the martial arts are not, when you do with martial arts, especially from the Chinese vantage point, um, the knowledge itself is key because all you're doing in the martial arts though is knowing yourself and the mentality by which you move. So you're really applying the nature by which you think to how you move. So it's really all the same. You know what I mean? In a lot of ways. Right? So when we got when we got knowledge of self, it was almost it was a way to just just deal with this. Now it all made sense, because a lot of the aspect of Chinese kung fu is in the gauging of your own nature, the gauging in your own energy, how to control it, how to manifest it, and then also in what reality will it be used for. So so all of that has to do with the way that we live. You know what I mean? So it's a living thing. So the supreme math, the alphabet, the language of the true and living God is all, it's all really almost the same to me. You know what I mean? And for all the gods that we built with it, it always linked together. You know what I mean? Definitely always linked together. Oh man, you know. And I think I learned martial arts after I got knowledge of self. You know what I mean? So this directive of being a poor righteous teacher, this goal, this heartful desire, um, it needs to be physically augmented. And everything that you're doing though, it goes out. So that difference between 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 outward is manifested all the time with martial arts. You know what I mean? But Genus asks, do you practice myofascial release, like the muscles, like the muscle release? Um, I don't know if I would call it all that. You know what I mean? But there's Chinese kung fu always has qi kung in it, so you're always doing internal breath work. So it's always crucial. So as far as releasing the energy, dealing with the pain centers, learning how to absorb the pain, release the pain, channel it into different levels. Um, that's always something that we train for in with qigong and the way that we do our breath control. I'm sure other forms that would be definitely something to look at. You know what I mean? I don't know of other like the westernized forms or things like that. Ways like that word there, like myofascial. I've heard the word, but I never engaged in that. We were always training just by what we was learning, with qigong and the breath control and being able to transfer our energy to where it needs to go. So these are always things we work to master. Doesn't mean that we master it all the time. So we do get hurt a lot, right? And we do have pain. Yeah, and that's really a description of qigong because on the higher levels, that's what's happening. You know what I mean? Um, you should email me. I'll send you some stuff like the best books is Dr. Yang Zhuang Ming because that's really what qigong is. It's the Western world call it something else. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's really the same thing. It's like they reinvented the wheel with that. Not saying that they didn't add things and differently, but that's really like what qigong is. It's about mastering all the limbs and down to the muscle to the scale. They even call it brainwashing and muscle tendon changing and bending. You know, so at the highest levels is about using that breath to manifest the energy transfer and open up those channels. You know what I mean? Which is what is described in Qigong as the reason for that, the blockage. You know what I mean? When you deal with Qigong, your pain is really a blockage, you know. So that's why, like, being able to have good stretching abilities, being able to put the breath in the places that you need, even though that sounds very abstract if you don't do it, or haven't learned it, is a lot of the function of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know. But also just knowing preservation. You know what I'm saying? You guys say I got bigger and everything, but I don't. You know, I'm not going every day to like lift the most heaviest, like my uh peak, peak weight. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. The most I could lift, I don't go for that. I go for like a 80% of that. You know what I mean? Mastery of it, as opposed to just pushing it. You know what I mean? Right. So there's always a preservation in the art too. You know what I'm saying? And that goes along those, that balance of yang and yin, that balance. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work, but it's a lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? It's a lifestyle. And even though I said I got bigger, the point was to be able to get bigger like this. Every time I was bigger like this, I wasn't able to move as well. So that was really the goal, to get bigger as I once was, but to be able to move in a fashion like my lighter self. And that has been achieved. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, but let me throw out my email. We have about 10 minutes left. So any questions that you might have, let me know. That book, by the way, what I was referencing is The Root of Chinese Qigong. Okay. Yang, I do have this book, so if you email me, I'll send it to you. Dr. Yang Juing Ming. This is how they write it. Okay. I think the most articulate books written about Qigong, my personal favorite books. Mantak Chi, of course, is up there too, you know. It's got good stuff. Okay, some of the stuff I have, I'm going to save for next week. Just let you get your questions, any questions that you have, because um, that way I could go into detail with the plus lessons I have, though. Hopefully, got a good political plus lesson. And go back, and if you have any questions about that or anything like that, you let me know. You know what I'm saying? And we could build on it. You know. All right. Yeah. So let me know. Let me know if there's any questions. We only have a couple of minutes left. You know what I'm saying? I was thinking about, right now with what Gina's, Germ said about delving into creative activities. You know what I'm saying? I'm engaging in creative activity right now and doing something that I've never done before. And there's a couple of things I do creatively that I don't intend to share with anyone because I'm not on that level yet. You know what I mean? Like, for example, playing instruments. You know what I mean? I don't think I'm good enough um, on any level to do that. You know what I mean? But not yet. But there's something else I'm doing that I've never done before. So it really opens up your mind. It takes you a different place. So the mind has to stay creative. You know what I mean? Supreme scientist, you let the cat out the bag, though. You know the real secret, though. I mean, but not in this case, though. All my shirts are always nice and small. You know what I'm saying? Nice, tightly fitted, but definitely not. Actually, was 100 early in the year, January, February. I was about 128 pounds. So now I'm 140 pounds. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know. But yeah, I need my shirts nice and you know what I mean. But it's funny though. It's all good though. Nah, it's all Qigong. No, Mantak Chia, he teaches Qigong. Yeah, it's all Qigong. He's showing you just different ways of doing it. Um, with Mantak, I noticed he has more of a Taoist approach, which just changes like the mentality of it. Kind of like the I'm gonna say for now to give it a shitty explanation, like a more spiritual bent. Like a lot of his ideas will have like the Taoist reasoning that go into why certain things are done, which sometimes I disagree with. Like he'll say something and I'll disagree with that reasoning because you know he'd be on some it's religious. You know what I mean? Um, but when Dr. Yang Ming is much more concrete, you know what I'm saying? He's much more concrete with the thing, so it doesn't come off that way. You know, much more scientific, and he does a lot to try to explain this though in I don't want to say the Western concept, but in the modern terminology. You know what I mean? Certainly the modern terminology that the Western world is on. You know, so it's really useful. And also too, I don't know. I just find it a little bit easier as a martial artist. So I appeal more to Dr. Yang because his more go into a martial standpoint, whereas Bantax would be very Taoist as far as like the spiritual standpoint. You know what I mean? But both reading both though, you get a lot of perspective. You know what I'm saying? You get a lot of perspective. You know, right? So it's very interesting. But if you want to do the martial arts though, Dr. Yang Ming is the one that you want to study first though. But you know, as a note, when I teach you guys the complete breath and stuff, and I was going through that like months back, when I learned kung fu, just like Infinite Mind, we learned together. I was just a little bit before him, learning with RC Gun. Um, one of the first books that the gods gave us, like was where we always handed out was the Science of Breath by by Yogi Ramacharaka. So that's not even um, a Taoist Qigong or a straight Qigong mentality, martial arts Qigong mindset book. Um, it's really yogic philosophy, yogic the yogic philosophies on how to use prana. I mean, what they call it prana. So it's more about you're drawing the energy from the air, whereas the Chinese Qigong way is that the energy is in you, and the air that you breathe is basically a tool to draw up that energy. So even though you get energy from the air, right? You get the minerals you need, oxygen and all that. You're basically getting your chi though is still has to be you is being used by the air that you breathe in though to start that inner flow to channel it. So it's much more less mysterious as far as like just gaining energy. But the reason that we started with Yogi Ramacharaka's Science of Breath, which I'll give you, is because it's much simpler to learn how to use all these different things and learn these complex breaths and stuff. It really helps you to have more command though. So it's a great beginner's book, especially the complete breath, which is like the one that you focus on first because it has all types of great exercises in there to learn. But if you email me and stuff, I'll give you all these books. Now you know where to start. But in all those things, any type of workout you're doing, though, a lot of times we learn how to work out. Like we'll watch videos and stuff. Like I really learned weightlifting by just watching videos. I didn't, because I've always had my own home gym. You know what I mean? So I'm benching, I'm doing all that, everything in my own home gym. I don't like to go to a gym. You know what I mean? And then with the martial arts I learned, I like to do that as privately as I can. So, and with space that a gym doesn't afford. So, with that whole mindset, right? Um, a lot of times when we learn new exercises of any kind, strength training, sprints, whatever, whatever we're doing, like hit training, a lot of times we're not really focusing on the way to breathe. Like I did sprints today, and a lot of times I focus on my legs though, right? To see if I'm running correctly, what I'm saying, getting that speed, getting that high leg kick swiftly on the whole leg, and all that kind of stuff. And then evaluating at each sprint, each stride of the sprint, what type of muscles might pull, how strong are they, how are they working, right? Injury analysis, right, as it's going on, because I'm doing these as hard as I can, though, you know what I mean, without destroying my whole body, right? A lot of times I was thinking to myself as I was doing it, I was like, we don't always we don't always think about how we're breathing in particular exercises, you know what I mean? Like they'll tell you, like, yo, if you lift, breathe in, breathe out, whatever it is they say. But what happens if you're doing rapid reps? How would you breathe? You know what I'm saying? um all these things are things that you have to take note of yourself, and then also use these books to really study and stuff. Malik, why don't you email me, okay? Instead of me telling you the book that I'm referring to, The Science of Breath by Yogi Ramacharaka, just email me, okay? That way I could give you the book. It's a book I have. I give it to you. I want to give it. And that way you could start your journey in this study, because all of us, though, even if we don't do martial arts, which I want you to all have some kind of martial art, some kind of fighting art that you develop. I don't care if it's boxing, whatever it is, something that's effective for your body type, because everything's different. A lot of the arts that I learned, though, a lot of people can't do it, though. You know what I mean? And it really has nothing to do with you're not being athletic enough. It's your body type. No, email me, okay? Because I can't copy down all the emails. That way I have you in my email. Okay, you email me and then I'll get it to you. Okay, that way we could build and we could set up that build and stuff. Because if you do that, I won't copy it down. I won't remember it and stuff. Okay. And as students, I want everybody to be, especially in the digital world, I want you to actively seek engagement. When I learned with Knowledge Me Allah and my teachers and stuff, I actively went to go get them. You know what I mean? I want you to get in the habit of going to get what you want, though, not expecting to just get an email of things that you want. You go get it. You come and ask for it. You go, we're talking all that Puerto Rican stuff. I was from a Puerto Rican neighborhood in Medina, and nobody had the knowledge. Nobody I knew had the knowledge. I had to go get it, though. So that mentality led me to go get it and continue to ask for all of the things I needed on those steps of the way. You know what I mean? So that's why I say that. Right. So just email me, you know what I mean? And then we'll build, you know what I mean? We'll build. Everything that you need, I will get it to you. Right. And if you don't know everything that you need, that's why we build personally. So we could analyze and we could see, okay, this is where you're at, God, this is what you need, this is what would be best. You know what I mean? That's why we build personally off of the classroom. Okay. So with that said, we are past 10. Um, email me for the things you need. Usually I try to get around to them on Saturday when I write the column for the P.E.A.C.E course. Doesn't always work that way. Um, that's because I'm probably playing with my kid and having fun. But with that said, though, with 10 o'clock, though, the main lesson from today, the babies are the greatest. And if the babies aren't the focus, all the children aren't the focus of that individual, fuck them. Actual fact, they can go to hell. And with that said, just like the father said, the babies are the greatest. Peace.